Welcome one and all back to another special episode of the Austin and Scott Variety Show.
Yeah.
This week our special guest is none other than Dallas herself. Dallas, how you doing?
I'm here.
Yes, you are.
Glad to have you.
How is your week going, Dallas?
My week's going pretty good. We had snow here in Tehachapi, and of course, Mom loves the snow.
Mm-hmm.
So that was great.
Yeah, we haven't gotten any snow over here. While I was out in Arizona, we did get the first and only day of rain since September.
Everything got real green for about 5 minutes and then went back to withering away.
Like, as soon as the sun hits it, it evaporates or soaks up into the stone.
Yeah.
Pretty dry out there. What about you, Scott? How's the weather out there in Colorado?
It's been pretty good, actually. It's been warm this week. I no longer have to wear a jacket every time I go outside, so that's a huge plus.
Mm-hmm.
And then the downside is, though, I know since it's getting warmer, eventually we're going to hit summer, which I wish we could just stay in the sweet spots of fall and spring for all time, but that's not how life goes.
No, that's not.
That is one of the perks of living out here is you get all 4 seasons, unlike in California.
So, like, you would have to live on the ring of the planet, or else you're too far into the cold side or too far into the light side, assuming that you survive at all on Venus or Mercury. But we're talking about, like, a ring of civilization that you could live on the planet. Like, for instance, they say if a nuke ever goes off in a populated city area, that there will be a ring at some point of all the microwave pizzas that are cooked to perfection. a little too close, and they'll be a little crumbly, a little too far out, and they'll still be cold and safe within their refrigerators. But there is
You're not wrong.
Radius.
By technical definition, if you are going through too much to too little, then yes, there has to be the middle point somewhere. You don't know where.
Yeah. Algebra ties into our first of many mini games we've prepared for you, Dallas. In these mini games, you will collect points, and at the very end, if you collect enough points, we may grant you a special magical prize. The first game that we have on our docket today is Order Matters. Today, I have 3 ancient mathematicians, Archimedes, Euclid, and Pythagoras in alphabetical order. You need to guess in what order were they born or prominent in their fields. Scott, are you familiar with these 3 mathematicians, Archimedes, Euclid, and Pythagoras?
I won't say I'm well versed, but I have heard of all 3 of them before. Yes.
And Dallas?
Yes, I'm familiar with definitely Pythagoras. Euclid, of course. Trying to remember what Archimedes did, because he sounds more like an astrologist to me than a mathematician at this point.
Archimedes did a lot of things. One of the things he was famous for was taking a bath with the king's crown. And in that story, he was able to see that the water level rose when he dipped the crown into the tub, and thus discovering and proudly proclaiming throughout the streets, naked, holding up the crown, "I've got it, I've got it, I've got it," as he discovered the principle of water displacement to better approximate or have a new means of measuring volume, which was a challenge back in his day.
I think vaguely remember that story, but is that the one that had Eureka, or is that somebody else?
Yeah, that's Mr. Eureka.
All right, Mr. Eureka.
So then Euclid is Mr. Straight Lines Boy.
Yeah.
And then Pythagoras is the triangle guy. If you have a right triangle, the square of the lengths of the 2 opposite sides is equal to the square of the hypotenuse. That's Pythagoras, among his other accomplishments. All right, Dallas, you sound keen. In what order do you think these mathematicians came out?
I'm going to go with Pythagoras first.
Okay.
Because I know that the Pythagorean theorem was used like in the Greeks, and it's been around for a long time. And then I'm going to go with Archimedes second, and then Euclid third.
All right, Scott, in your order?
I'll mix it up a little bit because I really don't know here. So I'll go with Archimedes first, Pythagoras second, and then Euclid third. Just because I think you need Pythagorean theorem to make Euclidic math work, if I remember correctly.
All right, with your answers locked in, Scott, you're completely wrong. Alex got 1 point.
Nice.
All right. Pythagoras is indeed the first one in this list, coming in around
Okay.
570 BCE. Around 300 BCE, Euclid came into the picture, and very shortly after, Archimedes also in
Interesting. Okay.
287 BCE.
So fluids is always last. Got it.
Yeah, they
Very
have to
well.
have straight lines to draw the bathtubs first.
Yeah, of course. How could I forget the whole aqueduct system?
Well, that makes sense. Like, they were bathing at this point.
No
That-
one showered. Everyone
one
was
showered.
stinky.
Yes.
All right. Well, this is a great time to remind ourselves to take a deep breath and go back to, I don't know, a fun fact for the week.
Oh. Oh, okay. Yeah, that'd be the perfect time to do that.
Yeah. Austin and I guess Dallas, did you know that the left lung is actually smaller than your right?
Wow. Is it because it has to make room for the heart?
It is indeed because of the heart.
So
The right lung has 3 lobes, while the left lung is slightly smaller due to the heart's position and only has 2.
well, they make us
Which
put our
one-
hands over our hearts for the Pledge of Allegiance, right? And it's never directly over center. They kind of teach us to go a little bit to the left.
Yeah, that is true. They do teach us that. And I mean, the heart is still more or less center, but because it bleeds into like the back left of it, I guess it doesn't have space for that third lobe. But yeah, no, I never knew that there was lobes in the lung. And if the website I have tied to that, like, it has a nice little diagram where you can go through and it calls out each lobe, and it's like, wow, yeah, we only have 2 lobes on our left lung. So if you're gonna get stabbed, I highly recommend getting stabbed in the left lung. That your left lung fills with fluid, but your right lung, the bigger lung, stays fully operable. So that way you don't have 2 collapsed lungs, or the bigger lung is not the collapsed lung. So
Well,
the more
that's-
you know.
I think it was in a James Bond 007 movie where they revealed that James Bond's plumbing for his heart and everything was wired backwards, like a mirror of a person. So when they tried shooting him in the heart, they shot correctly in the left side
missing
of
spot.
the body, but the plumbing of the heart wasn't there, and he survived.
Sounds like a real convenient birth defect that has no precedence of whether or not you be a good spy or not, but just as good for that one particular situation.
That is his special power. Can get shot in the heart.
But not really
But
get
not
shot in the heart,
really.
just when
It's
people
not
think.
really there. It's just a little off to the side. Speaking about
man.
war and violence, I want to introduce all of us to our next game, Sun Tzu Says. So Sun Tzu was a general from what is now known as modern-day China. He wrote down a lot of very concise, almost poems about the art of war itself.
I think I read it once when I was a
I need
child,
some context.
when I was an angsty teenager, and I have not picked it back up since because I haven't found it very relevant in most of my life. But I remember a lot of the stuff that he would say was common sense stuff, but just written down in poetic form, so the way it stuck with people.
Right.
He did talk about a lot of the hit and run tactics, supply line stuff.
Like, what is the time period of this?
The Warring States period of ancient China, circa 500 BCE. In today's game, there's a passage from Sun Tzu which lists 5 items, but I've written in a 6th fake item that he did not say in the context of this passage. Okay?
Oh no!
Yes.
In the context of this passage,
In the
particular,
context of
he might have said it in other passages.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's like
gosh.
on brand for Sun Tzu, but he didn't say it here. So I'll say this passage, whichever one seems the most sus, pick that one out in the back of your head. All right, ready? Thus we may know that there are 5 essentials for victory. He will win who knows when to fight and when not to fight. He will win who knows how to handle both superior and inferior forces. He will win who knows how to adapt to circumstances. He will win whose army is animated by the same spirit throughout all its ranks. He will win who prepared himself, waits to take the enemy unprepared. He will win who has military capacity and is not interfered with by the sovereign. By that last passage, I'm pretty sure that means that the king isn't backseat generaling the army.
All right. So some of these do sound like him. I mean, obviously 5 of them are. So that's where this is a little bit hard to find the one that is not.
I'm not familiar enough with like Chinese language to be able to say, but to like use the word animated seems suspicious.
Okay.
It was translated quite often in the early 19th century to English. That's where a lot of the verbiage is probably coming from.
But animated seems suspicious.
I would say yes, but because the people of the 19th century were trying to make his words sound more profound than what they actually were, that's where I could see somebody choosing to write it that way because they wanted to make it sound more impactful.
Right. Sun Tzu is only easy to read because it's been translated.
Right. And I'm leaning more towards the he who will win who knows either or win to fight, because they would have chosen other words for fight in that translation, and they use the word fight twice, and that doesn't sound very poetic. Or he will win who knows when to or how to adapt to circumstances, because that gives me no real info. But at the same point, he was cryptic like that, so I'm leaning more towards the fight myself.
So Dallas locking it in with the animated line, and Scott locking it in with the fight line.
It's either 1 or 3 for me, but yeah, I'll go with 1.
The result is all right.
Yep.
We've whittled it down. It's not line 1, and it's not the animated line. So there are now 4 lines remaining: how to handle both superior and inferior forces, how to adapt to circumstances, prepared himself, waits to take the enemy unprepared, has military capacity, and is not interfered with by the sovereign. Between the 4, which one do you think is the late addition?
My second choice was number 3, so I'll stick with number 3.
All right. And Dallas?
Go with number 6, just to keep it interesting.
Just to keep it interesting. All right, Scott, you got a point. It's the adapt to circumstances line.
Fair enough. But yeah, adapt to circumstances was too vague.
It was pretty vague. He did say this, but just in a very different chapter. So that means it's not essential for victory. Because there is also something about just being prepared. If you're prepared, then you don't really need to adapt unless you're already prepared to adapt. So it could be ancillary.
2 points, sir.
2 points.
What was the paragraph that he said something about, like, knowing yourself is more important than knowing the enemy? It's like, if you don't know yourself, you will lose.
That passage from Sun Tzu, and I think it's on the opposite page of it. Hence the saying, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every single victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. If you know neither your enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. Sun Tzu, Art of War. I like it.
Also, just a little bit of a late bloomer. Is this the first time you're reading this, Austin?
I'm just proud that he's reading.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Good job on reading, Austin.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you. Scott, I think we're ready for the next game segment, which is fake news.
Yes.
Oh my God.
So Dallas, in this segment, we will be having 3 stories, one of which is true, 2 of which have been made up. For this week's fake news segment, I have selected a list of articles that highlight unusually shaped items, typically food items, that are going for sale at local auctions. This segment is 3 points. 3 points if you get it correct, 0 points if you get it wrong. All right. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Yeah.
All right. First news story. Very unbelievable. Strawberries that look like a tiny duck scooped up for $7K. A particular strawberry shaped like a tiny duck has wallowed its way into the internet's fame by selling for $7,000 in an unusual online auction. The adorable fruit, completed with a carved beak and tiny wings, was discovered by a farmer who decided to post it online rather than eat it. Within days, the berry went viral, leading to a competitive bidding war. The buyer of the exotic fruit enthusiast says they plan to freeze dry it to preserve its charming resemblance. Whether it's a rare natural wonder or just a quack coincidence, this fruity find proves that sometimes food is just too cute to eat.
That's a really nice story. And I know that in some parts of the world, they'll intentionally have molds so that fruit can grow into the shape of them. But this story, I think, is hinting at the idea that it naturally and all by itself came out duck-shaped. What are your thoughts on this story, Dallas?
Typically, when you hear about unbelievably weird shaped food, they will actually give a location where it came from. I guess that's where my initial suspicion comes from. They didn't talk at all where the fruit came from. That's kind of
An early
where
red flag. Okay.
yeah.
Well, that gives us something to think about. All right, Scott, introduce us to the next story.
All right. Number 2. Gotta snack 'em all. Pokemon-shaped Cheeto sells for a spicy $87K. A flaming hot Cheeto resembling Charizard, dubbed Cheetozard, has been sold for a fiery $87,840 through Golden Auctions. The 3-inch snack mounted on a custom Pokemon card sparked viral attention and ignited a bidding war from $250 to over $72,000 plus fees. The sale highlights the bizarre yet lucrative market for rare snack shapes, with PepsiCo's Cheetos resembling a tradition of quirky finds. This is kind of stupid, but people are doing wild things, one user said. This isn't the first time a particular Cheeto has fetched big bucks. Back in 2017, one shaped like Harambe the gorilla sold for nearly $100,000. Seems like some collectors just gotta snack them all.
Wow. That's a lot of money for Cheetos. For an individual Cheeto, nonetheless. It's not like a Cheeto sculpture.
Yeah.
It's like a solo Cheeto from a bag. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money. That's
You know, I totally believe that.
You do? Oh my.
I totally believe that.
I'm just surprised that Harambe fetched more than a Charizard.
Well, just look at how much people sometimes are willing to spend at like Comic-Con. People can be collectors. I mean, look at Mom. She has a bunch of Mickeys. She wouldn't spend this much money on a Mickey, but you know, people have their passions and it's what they love, and if that's what they want, that's what they'll get. So it doesn't totally surprise me if that's true. The numbers are a little bit unrealistic. I don't disagree with that, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Interesting. Good take. All right, Scott, introduce us to the last story.
All right, speaking of price, number 3 is perfectly priced. Cornflake shaped like a cat sells for $15K. A cornflake resembling a curled-up cat has fetched a whisker-raising $15,000 in a quirky online auction. Discovered by a breakfast lover who almost poured milk over it, the feline-shaped flake quickly went viral, attracting bids from serial collectors and cat enthusiasts alike. The winning bidder, a self-proclaimed crazy cat person, says that they plan to keep the tiny corn cat in display case next to their collection of cat figurines. While some think the buyer got milked, others believe that the breakfast's treasure was simply the cat's meow.
Cat's meow. So I could believe cat passions and spending $15K. If you have the money for it, I could see that. I mean, how many boxes of cornflakes do you think you have to go through before you find anything resembling a cat? Is this story seem reasonable, Dallas?
I think the thing that this story kind of shares in line with the Charizard Cheeto is that they're talking about people who are buying these things that have a passion for those things. And when you go back to the cherry or the strawberry duck, like someone just bought it. Really vague. Yes, like I don't see the passion. Yes, and my other problem with the fruit, like Cheetos and cereal, they're a dried snack. Like they're easily preserved. Strawberry?
Yeah, I can see your point there. If you had to pick then, which of the stories do you think is the most believable?
I'm going to immediately knock out the strawberry as no way. I'm going to say that the Pokemon snack is the true one. Because they were very specific with dates and dimensions and like the auction place. They were oddly very specific. I'm going to go with the Pokemon.
I'm going to stick to my guns with the strawberry story. I think that's the most believable. All right, Scott, what's the case?
You guys locking in your answers? Austin with the strawberry and Dallas with the Cheetozard. All right. The real answer is... it is, in fact, the Cheetozard. Good job. I did not do a good enough job sterilizing the numbers well enough. I didn't notice it until as I was reading it. So you are correct to just suspect that one. But yeah, no, a Cheeto-shaped Charizard went for 87K. I think it was 2 weeks ago or last week. That's what it looks like.
Oh, I see. Okay. And
It's a little
case. Okay.
Charizard in a case, and they sold it at auction. It went from originally priced at $250 to 72,000, which after fees and all that stuff brings it up to $87,000.
Wow. Well, if you, I believe in the fanaticism of the Pokemon fandom.
Yes, if there was going to be a Pokemon, it'd have to be Charizard that went for that price. Yeah. So
if that's how the Cheeto crumbles.
Exactly. Yes.
All right.
But good job, Dallas. You had 3 points.
Yeah,
oh, thank you.
And that rounds you out to 6 points altogether before the half. Well done. Scott, can you tell us about our sponsor today?
Yes. Our sponsor for today is Volt Energy. Power up with Volt Energy. Need a boost? Feeling drained? It's time to ignite your energy with Volt Energy, the drink that fuels your day and electrifies your performance. Why choose Volt? Explosive energy packed with natural caffeine and for a lasting boost. No crashes, no jitters, smooth, steady power to keep you going. Electrolyte infusion, stay hydrated and refreshed. Bold, refreshing flavors because energy should taste amazing. Whenever you're hitting the gym, grinding at work, or gaming all night, Volt Energy keeps you charged, focused, and unstoppable. Feel the power. Drink Volt. Drink
Feel
responsibly.
unstoppable. I like that.
All
Hey,
right.
Dallas, have you ever heard of our sponsor before?
I've heard of a lot of energy drinks, but not Volt drink.
Well, now you know.
You should go buy some if you can find it.
Thank you, Volt. Big Energy, for sponsoring today's podcast.
Yes, big caffeine, more likely. But yeah.
That works. This rounds us out to our second half. The first game that we're going to play is a musical segment, affectionately named Name That Tune. So while I was in Arizona, I came back with a record player and about a dozen different cassettes from our folks, namely Mr. Grandpa Jerry and Mike DeHart. And Mike was pretty practiced and very capable. So what I have here are a few samples of his music. I'll first play in reverse. So the theme of this week will be 1980s radio rock hits played on acoustic guitar.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. This first song played in reverse sounds a little bit like this.
Oh. All right, I'm going to go with Haley Delilah.
That was a whole few
Nope.
decades after, but okay.
No.
No. I
No.
have no idea. I thought I heard Delilah somewhere in there. That's why I was just like, maybe it's an acoustic version of it that I'm not familiar with.
All right. I'm going to get the show on the road and play it forwards. Ready?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh man, my life, I'm a lot like you. Lullabies look in your eyes. I run around the same old town. It doesn't mean that much to me. Don't mean that much to you.
So, Old Man
I
by
didn't
Neil
even know
Young.
that song. Oh.
Did not
But you
know
know, it'd be
that
nice if I knew that song. Was that Mike?
That was Mike DeHart, yeah.
Okay.
All right, the next song played in reverse might be more familiar. Let's take a listen. All right, any guesses? Because it's probably
I'm gonna
doesn't sound like
guess-
anything.
An Eagles band.
I'll guess a Beatles band. Let's go with the artists for this
Okay,
stuff.
all right.
I'm going to guess the Beatles.
All right, Eagles versus the Beatles. Let's play it forward.
Desperado, you know you ain't no younger. Your pain and your hunger, they're driving you home. Well, freedom, yeah, freedom, that's just some people talking.
that is Desperado by the Eagles. So that is a point for
Well done,
Dallas.
Dallas. Very good. I also have never heard that song. Apparently, I need to go back and listen to a lot of 80s music.
There's some bangers there.
Apparently.
There are some
yeah.
bangers there. Oh, yeah.
All
And
right.
our mom likes to listen to hair bands, so we definitely get the genre. Ray.
Yeah, Dad had some
Yep.
best of albums in the car and many, many road trips listening to that style of music. All right, let's listen to song number 3 in reverse. Any takers?
That sounds a little bit more Beatles-ish, but I know that they didn't listen to the Beatles.
Right.
I'll go with Billy Joel.
All right.
Billy Joel's a good guess. That's a really good guess. I'm going to stick with the Eagles just for
Stick with it.
my life.
You know,
Yeah.
that might be a winning strategy. Let's listen to it forward.
Put me on a highway, show me a sign, and take it to the limit one more time.
Yep, Take It to the Limit by the Eagles. That's another point for Dallas.
Nicely done, Dallas. I'm sensing that your uncle only really played one type of music.
All right, we have a late addition to this game, a fourth song. Take. Yep, mimic. What are your takes?
Does the Eagles also sing Sweet Caroline?
Neil Diamond. So no.
No. I'm going to go with Neil Diamond.
All right, and Scott.
Most of my 80s music is British based, which I'm pretty sure, based on the comments I've gotten from you guys, on your parents and your extended family, they were very anti overseas music.
They were very American. Yeah.
Yeah, so all my knowledge of 80s music is just out the window. So I'm gonna go with John Denver.
I see. All right, John Denver and Dallas. You're picking Neil Diamond. Okay,
You know, I'm changing my vote back to the Eagles just to play it safe.
not a bad move. All right, let's hear it forward.
You ain't nothing but
Oh,
Okay,
it's Elvis.
Is Elvis 80s or is he 60s?
He's probably 60s, but you could only get a personal like tape recorder in the 80s when it came out, right?
That's fair. Okay,
So
okay.
Grandpa was
Fair,
probably
fair,
sleeping on that one for a long time until you had an opportunity to put it down on record.
fair. She got 2 and 3. Yeah.
All right, with that all said and done, Dallas, you currently have 8 points going into the next rapid fire questions section of the game. Way to go. So you just need at least 2 points to qualify for the prize. All right, Scott, tell
All
us all
right,
about it.
Dallas, for this rapid fire trivia questions, I have selected a theme. I feel like the theme will be pretty obvious once we start, but I'm going to have you go into it blind for fun. Basically, each question's worth a point. We get 60 seconds on the clock. If you know an answer, go ahead and say it, and if you are correct, you'll hear this noise. If you are incorrect, you'll hear this noise. If you don't know the answer, you can always say skip, and we'll move on to the next question. Only need to get 2 correct in order to win our prize. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Austin, will you put 60 seconds on the clock?
Yep, 60 seconds on the clock, starting now.
What is the main ingredient in hummus?
Peas.
What fruit is known as the king of fruits?
Durian.
What is sushi traditionally wrapped in?
Seaweed.
Which spice is derived from dried flower buds?
Skip.
What is the most widely consumed meat in the world?
Chicken.
Which fruit has its seeds on the outside?
Strawberries.
What is the technique of folding butter to dough multiple times called?
Oh, I know that, but skip.
Which cooking process uses dry heat in the oven?
Baking.
What is the most expensive spice by weight?
Saffron.
Which type of nut is also used to make marzipan?
Almonds.
That is correct. You got almost all of them correct. The one you got incorrect was the chicken one, which is The answer was pork is the most widely consumed meat in the world.
Lamb. Okay.
Ooh, that would have been good too, but yeah. Yeah, good job. All right, Dallas, are you ready to hear what your prize is?
Yes.
Your prize is you may now request one hypothetical wish, which we will choose whether or not to grant with our stipulations. What would you like to wish for?
My hypothetical wish would be to have a Challenger Hellcat. That'd be my hypothetical wish.
A Challenger Hellcat? The car?
A new car? Or a car? Because I don't think they make them anymore. Okay.
Don't make
all
it
right.
anymore. Yeah.
Okay.
That'd be my wish.
So the direction my brain immediately goes into, Austin, I want to see what your thoughts are, is what is a car? The same concept of what is a gun. The federal government has regulated a gun to be the lower, which has the serial number on it. Is that the same for a car? What defines a car? At what point do you take enough parts that it's no longer a car?
I think so long as it has a VIN number, it's a car. But
Okay.
that just means, the car of Theseus, right? If you
Right, exactly.
sing every single bit of the car until it's something totally different or maybe totally the same. But there might be ways around this. I kind of smell what you're stepping in.
The other thought my brain goes to is I'm sure Hot Wheels has a number of good Challenger Hellcats that you can give her if she wishes.
Right. That would be much more achievable in our lifetimes. Okay. All right.
Dallas, I guess. Yep. Go ahead, Austin.
Yeah, if we
Give her
ever
two
run
options.
into a Challenger Hellcat while doing our grocery shopping in the kids section, then I'll be sure to pick one up for you.
I did the same thing with my boyfriend because we've gone back and forth on trucks. I have really strong opinions about vehicles.
Yeah.
He talks to me about how he wants a Ford, and I'm like, you can want a Ford all you want, but it's not going to get parked in my driveway, and I'm not going to get in it. And so for Valentine's Day, I bought him a Ford truck.
Yeah.
With the Hot Wheels.
Yeah, nice.
And so now every time he's like, I want a Ford, I go, you have one. He goes, no, I want a real one. I go, you do have a real one. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, man.
And it's cherry red, okay? I got it.
Nice. All right.
Well, with that all said, we need to move on to the final section of our show where we respond to some listener questions. You ready to help us out with some of these, Dallas?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Agnes from Anchorage, Alaska asks us, I recently discovered old cassette recordings of our late uncle singing and playing guitar. Should we share them with our estranged cousins, or would that just open old wounds?
If they're estranged cousins, no. If you have close cousins, then yes. I think I've had my fair share of sharing things with estranged family members and it blowing up in my face. That's on them. It's not on you.
It could just be time and distance, physical distance.
If it was time and distance, I would send them a message saying, hey, I got some recordings of your late uncle, their late father. If you want a copy of them, just let me know. Send me an email. I'll send them to you and leave it at that. And if they don't respond to that, then you've done your job, like Dallas said. And at that point, it's just balls in their court.
I'd agree with Scott on that.
All right, Agnes, good luck out there. Our next writer is Bart from Baltimore. And Bart writes, our grandma insists on staying in her home, but she's starting to struggle with daily tasks. How can we balance her independence with making sure she's safe?
And these are really tough questions this time around. Dallas, you can go first on this one.
So I think it's important to approach this situation with the understanding that you can't make an adult specifically do anything that they don't want to do. And if they're wanting their independence, and that means they want to do their own grocery shopping, they want to do their own house cleaning, they don't want to let people into their home, you can't force them to want that. Like, let's say I was doing really bad on spelling tests. My dad would come to us and say, I'm going to help you. And we'd look at him and go, well, shoot, I don't like that. And the help wasn't, it was, I'm going to help you, but you're going to still have to do it on your own. But like, I'm not going to take the test for you. You still have to take the test. But I'm going to help you so that you are more successful in whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. So you can go, you can show up, you can be present, you can be helpful in the ways that they'll let you be helpful. And maybe in those ways of being helpful, they'll be more willing to give up pieces of their independence. You can't force someone to give up independence.
Yeah, I like the idea of giving them all the tools they need so that they can be the best version of themselves. But I guess the big fear is, what if they're in over their head and there is an accident? And is it better to catch that early by imposing that there's a lifestyle change, or do you just have to let that happen so that they can themselves discover the pain?
I think that's warranted by an open discussion. I mean, we have discussions in our own house here where I say, so, Mom, if something happens to you, what do you want me to do with you? And she'll openly tell me, this is what you want me to, this is what I want you to do, or this is what I don't want you to do. And setting the expectations. You know, Grandma, if you fall and if you break your hip, this is what is going to happen. And you will not have a say. Like, your independence will go away, not by your own choice, but because you'll be in a hospital.
I think the way Dad would phrase it to me whenever we were out camping and I would be climbing up rocks and boulders and trees, he'd say, son, if you fall and break your leg, there's no way to get you to a hospital in a reasonable amount of time. And you're going to be miserable for hours until you're either airlifted or until we drive you back down that bumpy road to get you to the nearest hospital. Do you want to risk being in that much pain for that long? So you'd kind of put stuff in perspective. A nice little thought experiment before I do something that I can't come back from.
That's
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What's your take?
My advice to Bart would be twofold. First is a question of, is this an immediate problem today, or is this something that you think will be happening in the future? And if it's an immediate problem today, then you're going to have to be the bad guy in some situations, I think, of where we need to pull that ripcord now, deploy the parachute to make sure that you're safe and you actually land. At least that way we know you're safe while you're here and so forth. However, if it's not that situation and we still have time, it hasn't quite come to that moment yet, what you can do, Bart, is you can lay the groundwork to make it be your grandmother's choice. And the way I would do this is by trying to find her a group or a community that she can join as a volunteer, where she can go there and volunteer with the other people around her age. That way, when her friends start getting put into retirement homes from their children, she now has friends wherever she's going. So it's not as much of a struggle for her to be in a brand new place. But having some sort of schedule or calendar that she can look forward to of visitation, that can go a long way, I think, with making her feel still in control of her life without the fears.
Well, that's some really sobering context, Scott. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
All right, next, Cassidy from Cincinnati writes, my mother kept a diary for years, and we found it after she passed. It includes some sensitive family history. Should we share it with the younger generation, or let the past stay buried? You have to give me more details, Cassidy. How juicy of an oopsie daisy are we talking about?
Okay, so I think a good example would be, and we've heard the stories all our lives, Austin, our great-grandmothers were shipped away, right? And our grandfathers went across state lines to go and snatch our great-grandmothers to marry them. It was scandalous. Right?
Uh-huh.
It was scandalous. And I think that was where they didn't want the husband to marry them, right? Like those kinds of stories, it's like, yeah, they're a little bit scandalous. Whether it's infidelity or if someone had a miscarriage or something really personal to themselves, wasn't your mother, it might not necessarily need to be shared.
Right.
Because it's not going to impact you.
For the sake of it
Right.
might help if it provides some much needed context for something that isn't well understood, but for the sake of clout, I don't think it's very fair to hash up old stuff.
I think Dallas made a great point as to that side. And I think that in most situations, that should probably be the way you go. The great-great-grandparents' time was a very, very different cultural time for America. We have to keep in mind this was before the World War II, so before the war. I know some of the darker history of my own family of that time frame is, I think, for example, I've never officially been told this, but it's been alluded to multiple times that my great-grandfather gave up my grandparent or my grandpa and his siblings for adoption because he couldn't afford them anymore. Like that level of disparity and hard decision making is something that we don't really have nowadays in our life, as far as just we only have want problems now, not need problems anymore in America. So if there are stories like that you can share with the younger generation to put their mindset in, like, hey, things haven't always been this good. We are in a golden era, probably, of America. Just realizing that and having the context to reframe their own life in. The fact that we can hop on a podcast with over 1,000 miles away from each other and have a full conversation with no lag is ridiculous. I mean, only 150 years ago, people were dying of dysentery on the Oregon Trail. That's the level of value I see as far as just sharing those older stories. If there is something like that, that can be a value to the younger generations. However, to Dallas's point, if it's just for clout, just to stir up stuff, there's no real value there. However, if you can put it in the historical context to show, hey, this was a really difficult situation, a really difficult choice. This is what our ancestors ended up choosing, and what the outcome was of you being born, for example.
Right.
Then I can still see some value in there, but there's definitely a line that you should toe and not cross. That was the exact point Dallas made. So I guess I'm on the same opinion as Dallas. So, yeah.
All right, way to go. Our last writer comes all the way from someplace. I'm not exactly sure because he sounds kind of confusing to me. It's Scottish Barack Obama.
Hello, Austin, Scott, and Dallas. I am supposed to be retired, but I've never been busier. Maybe I am just not ready to be a sleepy boy. Any advice for women how I can lean into retirement?
Thank you, Scottish Barack Obama.
Obama making jabs at Biden, yep.
Yeah, but he pronounces Texas names like a Scottish person, so
I didn't know Scott was a Texas name. Actually, let me Google that. I'm curious if there's a Scott, Texas. I would laugh at
that it's more Welsh.
There is a Scott, Texas. God damn it. It's a farming community off of Road 47, about 10 miles northwest of Canton, Van Zant County. God damn it, we all have Texas names. All right, moving on.
Sounds like Scottish Barack Obama over here he knows he's retired, but he just can't put it down.
Yep.
So when Mom retired, she just decided she was just gonna watch TV and not do anything and just relax. And I'm like, no, you can't just sit and watch TV every day of your retirement. Like this is not what we're doing here. It was just like a random Wednesday. And I told her, let's go to the grocery store. So I had her getting it cheap. And I drove over to the senior center. She's like, where are we going? I go, we're going to the grocery store. And she goes, this isn't the way to the grocery store. I go, we're going to make a stop first. No, we're not. And I go, yeah, we are. And we pulled into the senior center. And she goes, well, all these people have gray hair. And they're so much older than me. And I don't belong here, Dallas. And she wouldn't get out of the car, Austin. She's like, no, I'm not a senior. And I'm like, Mom, you're retired. And they finally unlocked the door to the senior center. And I walked around and I opened the door. And she goes, no, I'm not going in. And I actually physically unbuckled her seatbelt, Austin. And she goes, I'm not going in. Just totally resistant. And I ended up walking into the senior center. And I talked to the director. And I go, hey, I want to sign my mom up for the senior center. And he goes, well, where is she? I go, she's in the car. And the director walked out and got Mom out of the car.
A little bit of that.
And so I guess we're a little bit of that social pressure.
A lot of that little bit of social pressure.
Oh, jeez.
She must hate your guts right now.
Oh, she hated it. She hated it so much. And so I think a lot of it is a resistance to change because she had to go from working 40 hours a week, 40 plus as a teacher. And then she went on to retirement mode. And then she's like, well, I don't want to go meet new people. I don't want to change my habits. And sometimes changing your habits just needs to start with, I'm going to go to a volunteer center, sign up for classes. It doesn't have to be a senior center if you have other places in your area. But for mom, it was a senior center. And now she has a network of people that are not at all associated with her old work.
My dad has the same issue. However, I was not there to take him to the retirement home to tell him this is where he belonged. He found that out himself. So what he did instead was basically went back to work. He retired for 1 year, and like Obama here, he just couldn't put it down. The difference is this time, he's doing all the jobs that he wished there was somebody to do when he was working there. So he's also, like your guys' parents, in education. He was a high school guidance counselor for a long time. Previously, before that, he was the music director at the high school level. And he always was disappointed that there wasn't education for music at younger ages. And so basically what he's done is he found a way to get a contract with the teachers union or with the district to basically say, hey, I'm going to teach a couple hours at this school, a couple hours at this school, and hop from school to school to teach students music, basically. And the reason why he wanted to do it as a contract, as a paid gig, is not for himself to get money, because he actually, I think, loses money on this. A lot of it eats into what he would get on his pension payout. Is basically they won't let him double dip. So he loses a little bit of money by doing this, but it was important for him to get that contract. That way he can find somebody to replace him in that role. So yes, you're still working, but now you have a higher mission almost. Instead of working for the money, you're working for a higher
For yourself,
goal.
even. He's being the change
exactly.
he wants to see in the world, and that's really admirable.
Exactly. Yeah, now that he has no responsibilities with his kids, he has no responsibilities with his family to make more money to make sure he can provide for them. Mm-hmm. Now he can continue on his own personal mission and try to leave a lasting impact. So if you're doing the right job, you shouldn't ever have to retire, is kind of my opinion now, which to Obama's, my bet is that he's doing the right job. So I don't know if you need to have to retire, but more look into mentoring somebody to replace you when you are eventually gone.
Those are really good takes. All right, Scott and Dallas, thank you so much for another awesome episode. Dallas, before we leave today, is there any cause that you'd like to tell our lovely listeners?
Oh, I think as I've been listening to your podcast and listening to the listeners' questions, I just want to tell the listeners that being afraid to fail is the only thing that can truly hold you back. Failure is not the opposite of success, it's the pathway to it. Embrace failure, learn from it, and turn every failure into the foundation of your success. And I hope everybody the best for their week coming forward. And I'm just so happy to have had this opportunity to join Austin and Scott on this podcast.
What a beautiful sentiment, Dallas.
Well, thanks, Dallas.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's the nicest thing anyone said about this podcast.
Oh!
Sad part is he's not lying.
Oh.
But thank you, Dallas. That's very good.
All right, Dallas, thank you again.
Yeah,
Thanks
no
for joining.
problem.
And
Advice.
thank you, listeners at home, for keeping up with us. And we will be very happy to be with you next week.
Thanks for joining, and I'll see you guys later.
Yes, no problem. Bye-bye.
It was fun.
Bye.
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 Croissant.